Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 13th of January, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into the news from today. So, a bit of drama on Twitter today, crypto Twitter as it's known. You might have missed, because I don't know, I didn't see too many people talking about it, even though I woke up and I kind of checked this and I was like, wow, this is kind of a bit of drama going on here. So basically it started with Andre posting a blog post yesterday called Building in DeFi Sucks Part 2. So he's done one of these before, obviously, since this is a Part 2. And basically it's like a little bit of a rant, I guess, where he goes on and basically complains about a bunch of different things that actually has a lot of merit, right? I actually don't think he's complaining just for the sake of it. So he talks about how, you know, when you're developing in DeFi and everything, people expect so much of you, right? The community expects so much of you. They're always begging or bugging you, you know, when's the next release? You know, when's this coming out? When's that coming out? He goes on to say that, you know, real users are really scarce. Because a lot of the money in DeFi is, you know, subsidized right now. I mean, to an extent, yes, there's a lot of unsubsidized liquidity too right now that I think definitely he kind of overlooked here. But still, there is a kind of a point there. And then he goes on and, you know, he gets a bit kind of serious here where he says, your success belongs to your community, but your failure is 100% your own. And he gives examples like, you know, if the token goes up in value, no one is going to be giving profits to you or thanking you for their profits. But if there's some exploit, you are 100% to blame and need to refund or figure out ways to make them whole again. You have 0% of the reward and 100% of the risk. I mean, yes, when it comes to YEarn and Wi-Fi, because obviously Andre didn't give himself any of the tokens, right? So he doesn't really, you know, besides the tokens that he farmed, he doesn't really have the upside that is usually there. So, and then he goes on to say, you know, don't give away your tokens. Don't get, you know, make sure that you retain some of them as team members, so that you can actually have a kind of stake in the financial upside. And then there's a bit of a piece here on community. He says community is bullshit because of the fact that I think there's a lot of community members. I mean, it depends on which community as well. But if you go into like the various Discord channels and everything, and depending on the project, if you go in there and see the community, some of the communities are really kind of like heavy price speculation, and what that leads to is it leads to a lot of perverse incentives where the community is just going to be complaining all day if the price is going up or it's going down, you know, blaming the team, saying, you know, you should be shipping new features so that the price goes up, you should fix the token, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, these people normally don't even contribute anything, right? They're just sitting there complaining. And I've seen this play out before, and it's really shitty, especially for the team. So totally understand that from Andre here. And then on top of that, there are communities on the other end of the spectrum, though, where I kind of like think that depending on how you fostered them, they're really great, right? They're not price sensitive. They actually care about the product and the fundamentals and want to help build it. They want to be part of it. And, you know, the token price going up isn't like an immediate thing for them, right? They hope that it goes up, you know, over time, of course, but it's not an immediate thing where they're just like, you know, the project just launched. Why is the token going down? Or why isn't it going up, sort of thing? And I think, you know, a little bit of a shill here, but I think we've built that with the Index Co-op. So if you haven't seen them, you can just go to the Twitter account, Index COOP, so Index Coop or Co-op, and join the Discord. There's a lot of great stuff going on in there. I mean, I love the community that we've managed to build in there. And, you know, we're not the only one. There's a bunch of others out there, like Synthetics, I guess, Aave, you know, a bunch of other ones, probably smaller ones as well. But then there are a lot of ones that are kind of like what Andre's talking about, and that's unfortunate, right? And I really do kind of sympathize with teams that would rather not become like a community-run project and be like a VC-backed project, because VCs aren't going to do this. Most aren't. You know, there's some VCs that are obviously, you know, parasitic and maybe they're just in it for the money, but from the VCs that I know, and a lot of the DeFi native ones, they tend to be very helpful. And they're not there on your back every day, you know, pushing you to ship things so the token price goes up and all that sort of stuff, right? So yeah, there's kind of like two sides there. But totally agree with a lot of what Andre is saying here. But there was a thread reply from Ashley Shapp from Uniswap Protocol. She's the growth lead there. So she had some thoughts about this, and I mean, there were quite, I guess, like interesting thoughts. I think one of them kind of caught my eye. I'm not going to go through all of them, but she kind of replies to what he was complaining about and what he was talking about. But the one that kind of caused the most drama was this tweet here, where she says, and I quote, "One of your complaints is that anyone can steal your work in DeFi, and yet YFI or Yearn chooses to partner with Sushi. When a legit dApp validates a stolen dApp by partnering, it just encourages that kind of behavior. Maybe keep that in mind for your next project," end quote. Now, of course, you know, calling something a stolen dApp is a bit weird, you know, a bit of a weird thing to say, considering that Uniswap's code is completely open source. There is no copyright protection on Uniswap. SushiSwap did nothing wrong by forking the code. Obviously, you know, in the early days, SushiSwap had a lot of drama surrounding it, right? And I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter if you want to check that out. So there's a bit more thoughts in there, but I'll run through it now anyway. But basically what ended up happening, and a little bit of history here, is that SushiSwap did launch with this explicit intent of stealing Uniswap's liquidity. That's not debatable. That's how they launched. They said, you know, Uniswap's a VC project. We're going to be a community-led project, and you know, it was launched by an anonymous kind of person called Chef Nomi. And then what ended up happening is that the Chef Nomi sold their sushi from the dev fund in kind of like an exit scam, but then like a couple of days later they returned the funds, and then the project was basically handed over to the quote-unquote community led by someone named 0x Mackie. So this, I guess, is the nuance you have to take into account when you see this. I think the reason why Ashley is saying this is because SushiSwap did really launch with the intent to kind of steal market share, right, from Uniswap. And that's fine, I think, but now, that's fine from, I guess, like the perspective of the code is open source, right? And you can't stop this from happening. This is literally what we deal with when we're in an open source, decentralized world where anyone can do anything. You know, it didn't have to be SushiSwap. It could have been another AMM that did this or another project that did this. But calling it like a stolen dApp, I think, is what got a lot of people kind of upset and kind of, I guess you could say, triggered a lot of people. And you can see that Banteg from Yearn here said, kind of justified why they partnered with Sushi by saying, and I quote, "Yearn has partnered with Sushi because Uniswap has shown zero interest in building any meaningful dev community over the years. It's okay if your model is to develop in stealth and drop occasional quality releases. I just don't see how it can transform into something emergent," end quote. Now, I think Banteg has a really great point here. Uniswap definitely builds in secret, right? You know, V3 has been hyped up for a long time, but there's little to no details about what it's actually going to have. I think, you know, people are hyped about it because of that. You know, maybe that's a strategy on Uniswap's behalf. But on the other kind of, I guess, end of the spectrum, SushiSwap is being developed completely out in the open as a legit community-run project, right? You can see it on Twitter, you can see it in their Discord. They're recruiting people from the community to be full-time kind of like members of the team, and that goes for basically, you know, Yearn and all of the products in the Yearn ecosystem. So there's kind of that like division happening here, and I think the more it's framed as if SushiSwap kind of like stole Uniswap's dApp, the more Uniswap's going to lose the community here. And, you know, I totally understand the framing because it literally did launch as a way to steal liquidity from Uniswap because it needed to do that to, you know, kind of like bootstrap itself. But I think the SushiSwap of the Chef Nomi era is not the SushiSwap of today. They're actually innovating, right? They, you know, of course, they obviously originally forked Uniswap's AMM and their tech, but they're actually building a lot of stuff from the ground up now and innovating and launching new products. So I think it's unfair at this point to call it a stolen dApp. And that kind of, I mean, that framing is also just weird because you can't steal a dApp, right? As I said, because it's open source. So yeah, I mean, I think in general, going forward, you know, Uniswap V3 is going to come out. They're going to have a layer 2 implementation. That's going to be great and everything. And I think they're going to, you know, retain their market share. But I also think that competition is extremely good. I think that SushiSwap forced Uniswap to release its token early, you know, earlier than they would have liked, as like a kind of, I guess, like a hit back or a defense mechanism against SushiSwap, which seems to have worked pretty well at this point. But, you know, Sushi kept building, Uniswap's kept building, but Sushi's doing it out in the open, have managed to garner a pretty great community, whereas Uniswap's community is smaller, and because they're building in, you know, closed space. So there's pros and cons to both. I'm looking forward to Uniswap v3, but I'm also looking forward to the different products that SushiSwap is bringing to the table. And you know, I've said this before, but I think that the real winners of the decentralized exchange space is going to be the aggregators, those that sit on top. And I think that in the end state, the ones that are going to get the most, or the aggregators that are going to get the most use, are going to be centralized exchanges, because of the fact that most people, I mean, don't really want to, you know, custody their own assets or deal with all the intricacies of things. They'd rather just like use a centralized exchange, for example. So you can imagine a Coinbase setting up an exchange or an aggregator that taps into all of these different DeFi liquidity pools. So they're going to be the real winner here. But that's not for quite a while, and I think, you know, the AMMs themselves can actually innovate here and kind of carve out market share for themselves. I mean, Sushi's catching Uni right now for sure in terms of market share and in terms of like, I guess like token price and market cap there. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see this play out. I don't really have a horse in this race. I do own Sushi and I have a little bit of Uni as well, but you know, I'm not going to say that it's influencing anything that I'm saying here. I mean, you can go back and see that I was actually very critical of SushiSwap at the start because I did think it was quite a gross attempt at stealing, you know, Uniswap's liquidity. But since then, the project's evolved and I've come to like, you know, say, okay, well, maybe, you know, this can actually compete. This can be a legit kind of app on Ethereum, and it just forces Uniswap to compete more as well. So yeah, I guess in general, I am just watching, you know, an observer, seeing how it plays out, and maybe, you know, maybe the tokens that I own go up in price, but that's not what I kind of like, kind of really in it for. I'd rather see the best product win, and you know, at this point in time, it's kind of up in the air. We'll see what Uni V3 brings. We'll see what SushiSwap has in store. You know, they've got a few products that they're working on that's being hyped up on Twitter. We'll see if they deliver. Right, hype's one thing, delivering them is another thing. So, gonna keep my eye on all of that for sure. So I mentioned a couple of days ago that one of the Aave team members was teasing I guess a layer 2 Aave implementation on Optimism. Now Stani again kind of teased a layer 2 for Aave coming in response to Mark Cuban, who actually, it's funny because Mark Cuban is a billionaire investor, kind of tech investor. He's been around for ages. You probably know who he is at this point. Probably doesn't need an introduction here. But basically, he was in a Twitter thread with Tyler Winklevoss and said, the gas on Ethereum is always an issue. Just the cost of moving crypto to Aave is crazy expensive, and the number of non-crypto options will increase. And he was replying to someone else here. I think this caught a lot of attention within the community because he said he was using Aave, right? You don't expect people like this to be using, you know, the latest and craziest DeFi kind of apps and things like that. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, Stani then kind of came back and said, Aave's going to layer 2, which will reduce the gas cost substantially. So I think, you know, I think what we're going to see, and it's going to be pretty crazy, we're going to see Synthetics, Uniswap, and Aave all launch on layer 2 around the same time and all launch on Optimism. And then layer 2 is really going to take off. So I'm super excited for that. But I just did want to mention again that I saw this tweet from Stani and thought that it was another kind of hint towards, you know, layer 2 coming sort of thing. So great to see Stani kind of chiming in there. So Eric Connor put out this tweet today saying, we are grossly overpaying miners. Can't wait to burn all of these fees. So basically, I mean, most of you probably are aware of EIP 1559, which is the Ethereum improvement proposal that's being put forward to change the fee market on Ethereum. And one of the mechanisms is to burn ETH, you know, a portion of the fees paid. Now, this is obviously extremely exciting for the entire Ethereum community. It is something that's been coming for quite a while, and it's needed more than ever, because we definitely are overpaying miners, like grossly overpaying them. Because if you look at the chart, I don't have it up right now, but if you look at the chart of miner revenue, you can see that the fees on some days are basically the majority of their revenue, or at least half the revenue, and then the block rewards are the other half. And we don't need to be paying them this much. The block rewards are already quite large. So miners are making a killing off of these fees. And I don't think they should be, to be honest. I think that we should be burning the fees so that drives more fundamental value to ETH. And then obviously the miners have ETH and their ETH value goes up, and that's how they kind of like make some more money there. And obviously miners are kind of, kind of, I wouldn't say on their deathbeds, but like they're going to get phased out sooner rather than later. Once the merger goes through, which will most likely and almost certainly happen kind of next year in 2022, the ETH1 to ETH2 merger, once that happens, the miners are gone completely. So in the meantime, they're just getting rich off of Ethereum's usage through all these fees and the block rewards. And I'm not saying I hate miners or anything. They obviously provide a great service to Ethereum, but they're service providers, right? They just provide the service and they get paid via block rewards and fees. But at this point, yeah, the fees are just way too high. As in, like, we're paying them way too much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to 1559 going live. I'm actually seeing, if I bring up a thread here from Tim Byko, there was actually more chatter about EIP 1559 today, where someone on Twitter called Matterhorn put out this tweet that said, Ethereum's EIP 1559 is ready and it needs to be shipped. And then there was a bunch of Discord messages here from people that saying it was ready and it can be shipped. But then Tim Byko, who is the Ethereum All Core Dev lead and also the lead of the 1559 effort, kind of tweeted and said he disagrees that it's ready to ship now, and the TLDR is that not all clients have an implementation, none has a final one, and they still haven't addressed the main pushback from the all core devs testing large blocks with large state, and the ETA for that's in a few weeks. 1559 will affect a lot of projects. Anything that signs transactions depends on the RPC responses to blocks and transactions, and they need to communicate those changes broadly. And Berlin, the next Ethereum network upgrade, is almost done, and dropping everything now to ship 1559 wouldn't be a huge speed up. So yeah, those are the main reasons. But that doesn't mean 1559 is being pushed back or is not coming anytime soon. I actually think, and I've connected a bit of the dots here, so we have Berlin going live probably, in the next, maybe not a few weeks, I don't know. Let's say the next couple months sometime. I haven't, kind of kept up to date with exactly the timeline on that, but it's coming sooner rather than later. And then in July, we actually have the Ice Age or the difficulty bomb going off on the Ethereum mainnet. Now, this is not something that's discussed very often, so you probably don't know what I'm talking about. I'll quickly explain it. So the Ice Age or the difficulty bomb is a mechanism that exists in the Ethereum network that basically, once it reaches a certain point in time, it kicks in and it starts slowing down block production. Now, the point of this is to basically make it so that the chain cannot stagnate. The developers or the core developers need to make sure that they're doing regular network upgrades and kind of like putting in these EIPs. Now, if it gets to a point where network upgrade isn't done, right, the blocks will keep getting longer and longer, the block times, which means your transactions will take forever to go through, and eventually it kind of like effectively bricks the chain. So what that means is that it'll get to a point where blocks are like in the hours or days of length, and obviously the chain becomes unusable at that point and everything falls apart. Now, we're not going to get to that point. We're going to ship a network upgrade in July or around that time, and I think that upgrade is going to be 1559. That's an educated guess. I don't have any, information here that outside of that. That's just me connecting some dots. But I definitely think we're going to see, we have to see a network upgrade in July or around that time. That's non-negotiable. It has to be done, even if it's just an upgrade to push back the difficulty bomb. But I think that it would be a waste of a network upgrade just to include something to push back the bomb. I think that we should do 1559 and push back that kind of difficulty bomb at the same time. So yeah, we could see this happen in July, basically. July, August, maybe. We could see 1559 live on the network. So that's definitely something to get super hyped about. That's me connecting dots. Just want to be very clear here. That is not any of the core devs saying that. So please don't quote me on this. That's just me doing a bit of speculation here based on the information available. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. Even if it doesn't happen in July for whatever reason, it's happening this year. I'm pretty confident in that. And that was one of my 2021 predictions. So definitely going to keep an eye on that, of course, and update you all on what's happening there. Another really great Ethereum core protocol related tweet was from Light Clients. At Light Clients on Twitter. They're an Ethereum researcher at Quilt, which is a research team at Consensus. So they put together this thread that basically goes through why 2021 will be the most innovative year for the Ethereum protocol since 2016. And he lists a bunch of EIPs that are going to be going live, or at least being worked on in 2021, that are going to change a lot of things. So, I mean, I guess 1559 falls into that, of course, so that's probably the most exciting one. There's a bunch of technical kind of things in here that are very exciting, but I'm not going to go into them because I don't, understand the very technical protocol kind of, parts of the Ethereum protocol, so I won't do it a great service here. But basically, yeah, he lists 1559, then he lists EIP 2982, which is Serenity Phase 0, or like ETH2 kind of Phase 0 EIP, where the ETH1 and ETH2 teams are going to work much closer together under a shared or united EIP repository, which is going to be cool. He talks about the merger. He talks about account abstraction, which I've actually spoken about before, which basically means that we get rid of, we only have one account type on Ethereum. So for those who don't know, we currently have two account types on Ethereum. One of them is called a smart contract kind of account type, and the other one is an externally owned account. Now, your wallet is considered an externally owned account unless it's like a smart contract wallet. So just like a normal Ethereum wallet that you spin up in MetaMask, that's an externally owned account. Whereas a smart contract account is different, right? It's a smart contract. So what this would do is kind of like merge those two things, from my understanding, to create just one account type, which is supposed to fix a bunch of different things and make things like better, essentially. And there's a bunch of other things in here. I mean, there's so much. You should definitely check out this thread. I'll link it in the description and look up all the different EIPs that are coming. But yeah, I mean, if a Ethereum researcher, core researcher is excited about it, I'm excited about it. I mean, this is a bold claim to make, but I think, judging by the responses I saw on Twitter, it's been reciprocated by a lot of the other core developers and people in the community. So really great that Light Clients put this tweet thread out, and I thank him for that. Interesting tweet from Victor Bunin from Bison Trails today that I thought was really, really cool. So I'll read out the tweet. So, quote, "The challenge with bridging ETH assets to other layer ones is that they can be traded there, but only used on Ethereum. This means liquidity is likely to remain largely on Ethereum. Other protocols need to build up their own DApp and token ecosystem to be competitive," end quote. Now, what he's basically saying is that you can imagine something like the comp governance token. And, this comp governance token can be, bridged to another chain, right? You could take your comp and put it on Polkadot, for example, or one of Polkadot's parachains. And by doing so, you can probably use it there, and maybe it retains the same price, but its actual functionality only exists on Ethereum. You can only use it on governance on Ethereum, right? And this is why the comp token is actually staying on the Ethereum main chain rather than going to the compound chain that they're building. So, and that's just one example. There's so many different examples here. And this is why liquidity is likely to remain on Ethereum, because liquidity gets liquidity. These tokens have their most use, or they can only be used on Ethereum. So any bridging is kind of like just reinforcing that, I think. And it's a bit of a fool's errand as well. Like, I don't really understand why you would want to take your kind of like tokens to another chain. Maybe, I guess, for cheaper gas fees. I don't know, but we have layer 2 for that. So I think layer 2 will actually capture that rather than other chains. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was very interesting to think about. And one of the reasons why I think that Ethereum has already won the smart contract race, that there is no catching it. All these other chains may carve out niches, but Ethereum as a settlement layer, as a place where all the assets live, I don't think that's changing. I think Ethereum has won that, and that is one of the most important network effects to win. Having all the liquidity, all the assets. We already see this. These other tokens from other blockchains want to tokenize themselves on Ethereum because it's of great benefit for them to do so. Whereas Ethereum-based assets don't really have a motivation to do this. Like, why do they want to be on other chains? They don't. Whereas, Bitcoin wanted to be on Ethereum. We got Wrapped Bitcoin, Ren BTC, TBTC. There's a few others out there. ZEC or Zcash wanted to be on Ethereum. We've got Wrapped ZEC coming, I think there's Wrapped Filecoin coming. They all want to be in Ethereum because that's where the liquidity is. That's where all the infrastructure is. That's where they can be freely traded. I mean, to be honest, like, there's some tokens that aren't on Ethereum that maybe I want to speculate on, but it's just too much of a hassle sometimes for me. I like just loading up Uniswap and buying it on there, but if they're on another chain, I can't do that. So they need to come to Ethereum in a kind of wrapped capacity, and it benefits their token, of course, but it just adds to Ethereum's network effects and its kind of liquidity, overall liquidity. So yeah, I mean, the benefit definitely falls back to Ethereum rather than the tokens that are coming over. So very, very interesting insight from Victor here, and something that I've kind of thought about in the past as well. So the OCC, or the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is a regulator in the US, has been very, very bullish on crypto in general lately. So I spoke about how they basically gave the all clear to banks, or to federally chartered banks, to use public blockchains as settlement layers for stablecoins, which was incredibly bullish. And now, in an op-ed done on the Financial Times, Brian Brooks, which is the OCC's the OCC's acting comptroller of the currency at the OCC. He wrote about, I guess, like the future of finance, and basically says that it is DeFi. And he calls these, and I thought this was actually really cool, he calls it self-driving banks. So basically, he believes that DeFi, is the future. It's where all of finance is going to go to. I hope this isn't paywalled here, so I can actually go through a bit of the. Yeah, here we go. Financial Times is actually quite a big publication as well. So this is not just some random blog or whatever. This is being read by potentially, maybe, no, I wouldn't say millions of people, but at least, tens of thousands of people here, and straight from, someone in the OCC, like at the top of the OCC here. So that was extremely bullish to see. And I mean, this is just, could you imagine someone saying this, like even a couple years ago, from the American kind of regulatory bodies, and being this bullish to say that the future of finance belongs to DeFi and belongs to these neutral protocols and this neutral infrastructure, and we can get to having self-driving banks? I mean, this is just insane. Like, I when I saw this, not many people were talking about it. I'm like, why? Why aren't you talking about it? This is just like some of the biggest news that has come out of the regulatory front in quite a while. And I actually remember, back in December, we had a lot of, I guess you'd call it FUD, or like worries about self-hosted wallets being banned. And I spoke a lot about that back then. But since then, we've just had, very, very bullish regulatory news. And it's been great to see. I mean, obviously DeFi doesn't need the blessing of the regulators to function, but it greatly benefits from it, because that means they're not going to choke DeFi out, right? They're not going to go after the teams that are maybe based in the US or US allied countries. They're not going to try and put in harsh regulations that kind of choke the, I guess, like the centralized exchanges and things like that. So yeah, anytime there's any kind of positive regulatory news, even though you think that, I mean, you think and I think and we all believe that DeFi is going to be outside of any purview of any government, for the time being, we don't want them to fight us, right? We want them to work with us. We want them to understand this technology and let it flourish, because it's not just going to be used for bad things. It's also going to be used for good things, right? And we don't need over-regulation in this sector. I don't believe so. I don't believe regulation is going to fix anything. It can't, because it really is the centralized finance where it's built on these neutral protocols, and you can't regulate it. It's like trying to regulate torrenting, right? It's just impossible. It's decentralized. So I think maybe Brian Brooks understands this, and I hope others in the US government, or other governments as well, do understand this, because we need more friendly regulation if we're going to get this to a point where we can actually grow this thing. And then hopefully by the time maybe they do want to do more harsh regulations, they kind of can't, because it's too integrated into the rest of, I guess, like the financial system. But still a long way to go. But yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check out the piece for yourself. So another privacy protocol was announced today called Railgun. So basically they did a little thread here kind of explaining what they're building and what they're doing, but they didn't go into too much detail. So basically what it is, and they're calling it an upcoming privacy and anonymity system built directly on Ethereum. Users will be able to deposit ETH, USDC, REN BTC, REN ZEC, and other tokens to become anonymous and take actions private. They're going to be using zero-knowledge proofs. That you'll be able to interact with DeFi and DEXs and things like that, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then they're saying all of Railgun is built straight on Ethereum, no custom chain, no side chain, no layer 2, just pure Ethereum goodness. And then they have a promotional image here. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, there's not too much detail here. I'm going to assume that they're going to have a token, even though they say, I guess in the description here, no token buyable anywhere. They're probably going to have a token. But yeah, I mean, this is just another privacy protocol that, given that there's no information, we don't really know if this is actually a real project or not. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a scam. I don't know. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on this, because we do need more privacy solutions on Ethereum ASAP. We have obviously Tornado Cash. We have Aztec, which wraps kind of assets in zero knowledge proofs and things like that. But we need more. The more the merrier with privacy, because Ethereum's privacy landscape right now is an absolute disaster. It's basically non-existent, right? Everything is available to everyone to see, and it's very hard to kind of keep yourself hidden if someone is able to find your address. So yeah, excited to see, you know, more information about this come out. All right, last up here is that we have Connex's Vector on mainnet now. So I've spoken about this before. What Vector is, it basically makes communication between layer 2 systems possible. So they're claiming that it's very seamless. You can basically talk from one layer 2 system to another, route between them, and kind of things like that. They have some more details here about it, where they're answering a question from Alex Stokes, where they say that each channel is on a single system chain. Channels are connected to each other via intermediary routers. Routers can route transfers between channels on any number of chains L2s, including ZK and optimistic rollups. And they give an example here of send money on ZK Sync, receive it on Optimism PBC, or Optimism, sorry. You know, these are the claims that they're making, and I don't have a reason not to believe them, because this team has been around for a very long time, and they're very great builders within Ethereum. If this, you know, works as advertised, this is game changing. This solves a lot of the issues that people are talking about with regards to composability, fragmenting liquidity across layer 2s, fragmenting projects, especially across like the different technologies like ZK rollups and optimistic rollups. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this integrated with more of these projects. And I kept saying it every day, and I'll probably say it every day for the next 6 months. 2021 is the year of layer 2. It's the year of layer 2 adoption. We're going to get there. It's 2 days out until Synthetics launches on Optimism. One of the biggest launches of the last few months, I believe it will be. So keeping an eye on that, and I'll keep you all in the loop on the refill, of course. So yeah, go check out this mainnet release, their Medium post, I guess. It'll be linked in the YouTube description if you want to learn more about it. But I think that this is, you know, something that we're going to look back on and be like, wow, you know, why weren't we paying more attention to this at the time? This is like changed the game, basically. So yeah, definitely go check that one out. And all right, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the Daily Gwei newsletter, and join the Discord channel. And I will catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.